We've all seen this happen, right? A company announces some brand new AI assistant
Huge lunch party, everyone's
for
excited.
about 3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
And then poof, adoption just vanishes.
Yeah.
You look at the usage metrics, and they've totally flatlined. It seems like launching the tech is the easy part, but getting employees to actually use it, day in and day out, long term, that's the real mountain to climb.
It absolutely is. And what's so fascinating about the sources you sent over is that they really center on this fierce debate that's happening inside organizations right now.
Okay.
Which is, what exactly is the single driver that sustains AI adoption after all that initial excitement wears off? Is it training? Is it trust? Or is it something else?
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking the three main contenders that all claim to be the key thing: education, trust, and continuous improvement.
And what we see is that most organizations, they start out focused on one, then they realize they need all three, and then they often just miss the mark on actually executing that balance.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the argument that structure and learning are the absolute foundational ingredients.
So position one is pretty simple, but I think often underestimated. Education drives adoption.
Right.
The core argument is really procedural. If users aren't trained effectively and continuously, they just can't use the tool to its full potential.
And that lack of ability, it immediately translates into anxiety.
Right.
Resistance.
Exactly. They just revert to the old way of doing things because, well, they lack the confidence.
And the benefits of good education, they go so far beyond just knowing which button to click. Our sources really highlighted that proper training dramatically improves the quality of the prompts people use.
Oh, that's huge.
And that's critical, isn't it? If you don't know how to talk to the AI, you get bad data. And bad input means bad output.
Which then completely kills the next pillar we're going to talk about, trust.
Right.
Exactly. Poor prompting, it doesn't just create one bad answer. It creates this cascade of data quality issues that just ripple across the whole organization. But when you do it right, good education increases cross-department usage, and critically, it reduces that expensive dependency on IT for just basic troubleshooting. You build competence.
We have a great illustration of this, the retail corporation example. They rolled out an AI for inventory and forecasting, but they made the classic mistake.
The one-off training session.
Yep, one mandatory initial training. The sources basically called it information overload, completely out of context.
And the result, I mean, it's not surprising. Engagement dropped by a massive 50% in just 3 weeks.
Wow.
That whole initial momentum just evaporated. Because the first time an employee hit a real problem, they couldn't remember that one specific slide from that lecture weeks ago.
And the frustration just builds from there.
But they did turn it around. They realized learning has to be accessible and continuous, so the company switched tactics.
Away from that one-time lecture model.
Completely. They brought in weekly, 5-minute micro tutorials on specific tasks, things like how to forecast for a holiday spike. And they built a searchable video library for on-demand help.
So learning became just in time.
That's the key. And that shift boosted adoption right back up to 78%. It just shows that initial training is the starting gun, not the finish line.
But here's the tension. Even if you get 100% training completion, the sources immediately bring up the counter-argument. Training alone just isn't enough. You can train someone to be an expert in prompt engineering, but they still won't use the tool if they don't fundamentally trust the output.
If they think it's risky or inconsistent, all that training is just wasted effort.
And that leads us right to the second position, where, belief and culture really take center stage.
It does.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Some executives argue that belief in the tool's reliability and its integrity, that completely trumps training.
They say trust is the real deciding factor. Without it, the tools become what they call shelfware.
Shelfware. I like that.
Yeah, it just sits there like old software gathering dust. And it happens because employees will not rely on a tool they see as inaccurate or biased.
And if the outputs are inconsistent, even just some of the time, the whole workflow just collapses.
It collapses instantly because users will immediately start double-checking the AI's work by hand. They create a parallel process, which, totally negates the entire ROI.
And we can't forget the human side of this. Transparency, trust. It's all necessary to reduce that constant fear of job replacement.
Oh, absolutely. If the AI is just some black box spitting out decisions, employees assume the worst. They resist it culturally.
We saw this play out so dramatically in the financial services example. A firm deployed an AI to help underwriters with loan qualifications.
A really complex task.
Very.
Yeah.
But the AI's rationale was totally opaque at first, and there were some early unaddressed errors.
And that created profound distrust. Almost immediately, underwriters were worried about compliance liability,
Sure.
their jobs.
And the result was near total abandonment of the system.
So how do you fix that? How do you restore confidence when the core output is already seen as suspicious?
Right. Isn't adding more checks and balances sort of the opposite of what AI promises in terms of speed?
It is, and that's the tension you have to accept. Trust is expensive to build, but it is fatal to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, trust only started to return after the firm implemented some really crucial safeguards. They added human override options, full audit trails so underwriters could see the logic, and they published clear transparency statements.
So the commitment to trust meant accepting a little bit of friction, that human override to achieve reliability. That's a huge insight.
It is, and the practical strategies are key. Organizations have to explain how outputs are generated. They need to publish guides like what this AI can and cannot do.
You're just managing expectations at that point.
Precisely. And even simple things can have a massive psychological impact. Look at the healthcare example.
Okay.
Trust improved dramatically just by adding a short, simple transparency statement before the AI-generated summaries.
What did it say?
Something like, this AI summarization is based on patient notes from the last 24 hours only. Verify prior history manually.
Ah, so that little piece of context builds immediate confidence because you're defining the tool's limits for the user.
Exactly. But the pendulum swings back again.
Of course.
Here's the counterargument to trust. Even a perfectly secure, audited, and trustworthy AI will fail if users don't know how to use it properly.
So trust without training still equals low adoption.
You got it. If the UI is confusing or no one knows how to write a good prompt, that reliable system is still just shelfware.
So you're in a situation where confidence has to come before confidence, but confidence is what drives adoption. It's a tough knot to untangle.
It is.
And that brings us to our final pillar, continuous improvement. The idea that AI isn't a finished product you just deploy, it's a journey. It requires constant iteration based on what people are actually experiencing.
Continuous improvement, or CI, it's all about agility. Business needs are always shifting, right? The market changes, new regulations come out. The AI has to adapt with the business.
And those iterative upgrades, they're a signal to your employees.
A huge signal. It shows that leadership is invested in making the tool better for them based on their specific friction points. They didn't just launch it and walk away.
And fixing those friction points is so essential because that is what unlocks advocacy. We saw this perfectly with the global logistics company example. Engagement shot up by 40% simply because the company listened to and acted on user complaints about slow response times in their route optimization AI.
And the key takeaway there isn't just the fix itself, it's the culture it created.
Right.
The improvement created internal advocates. Suddenly, employees saw their voices mattered, and they became champions for the tool, telling their colleagues, hey, try the new version, it's way better.
That's organic adoption growth.
Yeah.
It's fueled by being responsive.
So if CI is that critical, what are the best ways to get that feedback? It can't just be a suggestion box that nobody checks.
No. The sources suggest a few really robust methods. Simple in-product feedback buttons, detailed quarterly surveys, and direct interviews with your power users.
And I really liked the idea of dedicated Slack or Teams channel.
Yeah, for that real-time, ongoing discussion.
And that feedback doesn't just have to be about features or bugs. The customer service example showed how just adjusting the AI's tone,
Because it was too robotic.
exactly, based purely on user feedback that it was too formal, they tweaked it, and customer satisfaction scores rose 12% in a week. Tone, usability, speed, it all matters. It's all part of the human experience.
But of course, there's a counter-argument to CI too.
Always. Continuous improvement is basically useless unless users are trained well enough to give you helpful feedback.
And they have to trust the tool enough to actually use it consistently in the first place.
Right. If usage is low because of no training or no trust, you get no meaningful data to iterate on. You're improving a ghost system.
You know, what's so fascinating here is the whole debate is kind of flawed from the start. We've been talking about education, trust, and continuous improvement, like they're competing ideas.
But the reality is they're an interconnected system.
Exactly.
The organizations that really thrive, they do three things at once. They educate continuously, they build trust intentionally, and they improve relentlessly. You take away one of those pillars, the whole structure just collapses.
Okay, let's get practical then. If you're a leader listening to this, What does that three-pronged approach actually look like on the ground?
Well, strategy one is that ongoing education has to be ruthlessly role specific. You can't give the same training to everyone.
Right. Your frontline staff, they need quick checklists and just-in-time tutorials.
While managers need scenario-based workshops to understand risk and integration, and executives, they just need the outcome-focused briefings tied to KPIs.
And I think a monthly AI office hour session is a great idea. Just a low-stakes place for people to ask questions.
Absolutely. And strategy two is tracking the metrics that actually matter for adoption.
Not just vanity metrics. We're talking daily active users, task completion rates, maybe time saved per employee, and sentiment trends.
You need that data so you can intervene quickly before something becomes shelfware.
The manufacturing company example shows exactly why this is so vital. They were watching their daily active users and noticed usage dipped sharply every single Friday.
A consistent pattern.
Consistent pattern.
Yeah.
And the investigation found it wasn't a bug. It was that managers were holding their weekly planning meetings and deliberately excluding the AI.
So it wasn't a technology problem, it was a workflow problem.
Completely. And the solution wasn't more training, it was integration. They introduced Friday morning automations that required the AI to generate the initial reports for those meetings.
And usage rebounded almost instantly because they embedded the tool into an existing necessary workflow.
This holistic approach, it really proves that AI adoption is initiate. It's less about the software code and much more about change management, about cultural transparency and embedding the tool right into the fabric of the organization.
The three pillars, education, trust, and improvement, they are the required foundation for any long-term ROI. You need education to enable use, trust to encourage reliance, and continuous improvement to make sure the tool stays relevant.
So what does this all mean for you right now? As you think about setting up feedback loops and ensuring continuous improvement, consider this. What specific metric in your current workflow would be the most difficult and yet the most necessary to measure for AI success? Is it the quality of the output? Is it the reduction in time you spend double-checking results? Think about that friction point that no one's talking about because it's just too hard to quantify. Thank you for joining us as we unpack how to make AI adoption stick. We'll talk to you next time.